Hey, welcome to Black Rock. My name is Dan and I'm on staff here. Before the sermon starts, I want to take a second to invite you to join us in person if you're able. We have a thriving and diverse community of Christ followers that meets in person every week on Sunday morning at 8:30, 10, and 11:30 a.m. If you have any questions about visiting or about our church in general, feel free to check out blackrock.org/visit or email me at guests@blackrock.org. Now, here's the sermon.
You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in, behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me, your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
You just heard the words of Psalm 139, which is a prayer that King David lifted up to God. And we're going to study Psalm 139 today in order to close this series of messages we've called Conversing with the Creator. We've just been reflecting on the simple joy of having a daily, moment-by-moment dialogue with God. And the idea of a simple joy of talking with God brings up the simple question, well, what should we talk to God about? And so for 6 weeks, we've looked at 6 prayers of David in the Psalms, giving us 6 topics to talk to God about, starting with connecting prayer. In Psalm 1, we learned that there are 2 kinds of people in this world, those who are connected to God and those who are disconnected. And so the first thing I want to talk to God about is my relational roots in Him that give me stability in life, that allow me to storm-proof my life and ability to flourish in all the different weather of my life. Next, we looked at comforting prayer, where in Psalm 142, David models this supernatural exchange where David pours out to God his pain and his sense of hurt, and what God does is pours into David his comfort and his peace. And David received God's comfort because he asked for it, just like David also asked to be washed through cleansing prayer. Because there are moments when I hear myself and my self-talk with all this bitterness and anger and this ugly selfishness that needs to be washed on the inside. And so the good news is that I can be washed as I come clean with God, just like David did in Psalm 51. And then there's also the next conversation topic, which is calling prayer. Just like David, my life is one problem after another. But just like David did in Psalm 34, I can call out to God knowing that God promises to answer me with his help. whenever I ask, leading to celebrating prayer. As Pastor Josh explained last week, God is joy, and he wants us to draw upon his love, his power, his care in our lives in a way that fills us with joyful worship and praise. And then finally, we come to the sixth prayer topic, which we study today, called communing prayer. Now, what is communing prayer? Quick story. I got a friend named Rick. Rick and I go back to high school and college when we were very close. And you know how it is. We fell out of touch with each other. But then, apparently, Rick got my phone number from a mutual friend, and out of the blue, he calls me. And so we're just going over old times and just enjoying conversation. And I say, you know, Rick, we ought to get together for dinner sometime. And to my surprise, he says, how about tonight? So we get together for dinner, and we continue this conversation where I'm sharing my life, he's sharing his life, and then we come to the end, and we're just about ready to give a hug goodbye, and he points to his car, and he says, there's this damage here, and he tells me the story of how he just needs $400, and if I could just float him for $400, then he'll pay me right back with his next paycheck. And this is my friend. I gave him that money, but as I did, I knew that the damage was not the real story, and that I'd never see this $400, and I'd never see Rick again. Sad, but true. I'm wondering, have you ever had this experience? Have you ever had this happen to you? And if you have, you know what I mean when I say that the deepest pain was knowing that Rick didn't want me, he wanted something from me. You know what? God has a lot of friends like that. God has a lot of friends like me who it's all about what I can get from him. Now, of course, the conversation with the Creator relationship is a lot about asking God. We just went over all the different ways that we ask God to give to us, and God loves us to come and ask. He loves to give us stabilizing roots through connecting prayer, healing through comforting prayer, forgiveness through cleansing prayer, miracles through calling prayer, and joy through celebrating prayer. But at some point, God says, I know you want things from me, but do you want me? God asks that same question of you. I know you want some things from me, but do you want me? A relationship with me. This is where communing prayer comes in. Communing prayer is my spending time with God to simply enjoy our relationship of mutual love. Communing prayer is not expressing things I want to ask from God. It's expressing, I want God. And you may be saying, I get it already. I mean, that communing prayer is not asking God for things, it's being with God. But how do you do that? Well, that's where David's communing prayer in Psalm 139 is just so important as a model. Let me read Psalm 139, and I'll do it in 3 sections because this prayer of David expresses to God 3 aspects of what he just simply enjoys in his relationship with God. Psalm 139, a psalm of David. David begins this communing prayer by the first aspect that he just loves and enjoys in his relationship with God is he rejoices, you have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you know it, Lord, completely. You hem me in behind and before. You lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Now notice again that David is not asking anything from God. He's simply enjoying the truth that he has one relationship where he is completely known. And he says, you have searched me, Lord, and you know me. I have, in a relationship with God, I'm blessed to have one person in my life who doesn't need me to explain myself. I don't need to explain what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling or what I most dream of or what I most fear, because he already knows it all. And this one relationship means that you can't pretend. You have this one relationship where you cannot image craft. But what that means is that you can be completely understood, completely known. That's communing prayer. It's spending time with the one person who knows you perfectly. Then David goes on to express his gratitude for the second aspect, where he says, where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise in the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me, your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me and the light will become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. For a long time, medical science has shown that aloneness is lethal. Babies who are left alone fail to thrive. Senior citizens who are alone have shortened lifespans. Being alone drains us of joy and confidence and life itself. But God promises that he has the antidote to aloneness in life. He promises that he is with me everywhere, every moment, so I'm never alone. But then the skeptic side of me and you arises and says, let's get real. I mean, God is invisible. How can God's non-physical presence save me from aloneness in life? Well, the answer is that that real, true presence is not measured in physical proximity. You know this. You know this because you understand that it is possible to be completely alone, even in a crowded room like this. You know that you can experience this aloneness even in your own house. You can be with a person sitting at your dinner table, but that person's mind and attention and soul is somewhere else. You can be with that person at your dinner table, and they're wishing they were somewhere else. We have a name for these people. They're called teenagers. Except for Black Rock students. You saw their pictures. They are radiant, engaged people who are following Jesus. But our teenagers, and you know that it feels alone when you are with people physically who are spiritually disengaged from you. But with God, it's just the opposite. God is not with us physically, but he is completely with you and completely engaged spiritually. What does David say? God, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me, your right hand will hold me fast. In communing prayer, I rejoice that God is with me, guiding me, upholding me in ways that eliminate aloneness from my life and give me joy and security and confidence. Now, lastly, David reflects with joy on this third aspect of his relationship with God, saying, for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast is the sum of them. Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. When I awake, I am still with you. Once again, notice that in this communing prayer, David is not asking God for anything. He's spending time with God, enjoying his relationship of mutual love with God. And that's the real focus of this section of Psalm 139. It's God's personal love, his personal care that is just on display. And David reflects this truth that there is no relationship like his relationship with God, because his relationship with God is a friendship with the one who created him, the one who has always known you, who is always with you, who personally cares for you since you were an embryo. God was personally involved in forming your body in the womb. God is personally involved in ordaining the best parts of your story in his book for your life. And then there's this line that elevates God's care to a whole nother level. For you created my inmost being. My inmost being. Do you know what that is? That's your soul. God fashioned your body. That's mind-boggling. But your body is not really who you are. Your body, you could say, is just kind of this amazing container for who you really are. Who you really are is your soul. God personally knit together this invisible part of you that makes you you. God knit together this combination of your strengths and your personality traits and your loves and your quirks that make you you. God personally knit together your soul that will last forever. Your body is not you, and it will crumble to dust. But the real you is your soul. God made your soul to last forever because God made you for an eternal relationship with him. And that's why God invites me to spend relational time with him in communing prayer. God invites me to communing prayer now as a foretaste of what he wants with me forever. Communing prayer is when you spend time with God, just enjoying your relationship with him. And God invites you to communing prayer now because this is what God made you for. God personally made you and your eternal soul for a relationship with him that lasts for eternity. But there's a problem. There's a problem. And David knew this problem, and David expressed this problem in Psalm 139. David knew that he could never spend eternity with God unless he had a Savior. That's why David ends Psalm 139 with these words. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. David knew the ugliness and brokenness on the inside of his heart, just like you know the brokenness inside your heart. And just like David, you know that you're a sinner. And that sin separates you from this communing relationship with God. But David trusted that God would provide a way, that God would provide a way. Jesus is the way. And you could say that Psalm 139 is all about Jesus. God came down personally in Jesus to make the way that we could have the Psalm 139 communing relationship now and for all eternity. God so wants this communing relationship with you that he came in the flesh. Jesus is God in the flesh, and he comes to you, and Jesus says, I know you perfectly. I knew you before you knew yourself. I knew you before you were born. I knew you as a little kid. I know you now. Jesus says, I know the parts that are inside you that are ugly and you're ashamed of, but I want you to know that not only do I know you completely, but I love you completely. So much so that I gave my life to bring us together so we can know each other in communion now and forever. And Jesus says, I am with you perpetually. You couldn't see, but I was with you as a child when you felt alone and you felt abandoned. I was with you on the far side of the sea. It was my hand that was guiding you. It was my hand that was holding you fast. And when you see the nail scars in my hands, you know how much I have proven the extent that I want to go to have you with me forever. And Jesus says, I care for you personally. I created your inmost being. I knit together the eternal part of you that is you. I love your soul. I care so much about your eternal soul that I suffered so that we could be together communing now and forever. This is what Jesus says to you. And it is so important to Jesus that you experience this love, that you never forget this love he has for you, that Jesus took bread and he took a cup. He said, this bread is my body. This cup is my blood. It is so important to Jesus that you know this love and experience this love. That's why we call it communion. The bread and cup is where Jesus invites you to commune with him now as a foretaste of your forever friendship in him. So in a moment, I'm going to pray. And after I pray, we're going to pass the packets that contain the bread and the cup. And just hold it until everyone is served so we can partake of it together. Meanwhile, you can turn your attention to the screen where you're going to see some images and words that are going to lead you into this quiet moment of reflection, communing with Jesus. And this communion time is such a holy moment that I'm going to ask you right now to put your phone away. Put your phone in your pocket, put it in your purse, put it on the floor, toss it across the room. I don't care what you do with your phone. You don't need your phone right now. Trust me. No word on your phone is more important than the word you're going to get from Jesus as you commune together. Including this word. Jesus says, I know some of you are very confused about this whole conversing with the Creator because you've tried it and you don't feel any connection with God. You feel like there's no real relational connection there. Well, Jesus says, that's because I explain in my word that there is a starting point in the relationship. The starting point is when you receive the gift. That God says that this relationship is a gift that starts when you receive the gift of his forgiveness through your faith in Jesus and what he did on the cross. And if you have never received this gift before, by personally receiving the forgiveness of God through your faith in Jesus, then Jesus has a word for you. He says, do it now.
Thanks for tuning into our sermon here at Blackrock. I'm so glad you found us, and I hope and pray this message helped you get more connected to Jesus. Speaking of connection, if you're interested in taking your next steps towards getting connected at Blackrock, use the quick links in the description below. There you'll find links for information if you're new, for upcoming events, online giving, and more. I also want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our podcast so you can stay up to date with every single thing we post. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week, either online or in person.